Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're tackling a figure who pretty much everyone's heard of, at least Sitting Bull.
A name that carries a lot of weight, for sure.
Right, but when you only know someone from the headlines, you only see one side of them.
You miss the nuances, the full story.
And that's what we're hoping to uncover today, right? We want to get beyond the typical portrayal of Sitting Bull as just, this fierce warrior, the defiant Indian chief.
The kind of image you see in those old westerns.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got some incredible material to work with. First, there's this book, Sitting Bull, His Life and Legacy, written by Ernie Lapointe, Sitting Bull's great-grandson.
We talk about a direct connection to history.
Seriously. And we've also got a podcast episode that features Ernie himself. He's a captivating storyteller, and he's got this really unique perspective, not just as a historian, but as a descendant who's carrying on his family's traditions.
It's like holding a piece of living history in your hands.
That's a great way to put it. And one thing that really stood out to me from both sources is the emphasis on oral history. It's such a vital part of Lakota culture.
It really challenges the way we typically think about history, right? Like, we tend to focus on the written word, official documents, but for the Lakota, those stories passed down through generations, those are the real treasures.
The living embodiment of their past.
Exactly.
And Ernie Lapointe, he talks about how his mother, Sitting Bull's granddaughter, would even use humor to teach him about their history.
It makes it more accessible, less intimidating, right? Especially when you're talking about events that were, let's say, pretty traumatic.
For sure. Like even in the darkest of times, that Lakota spirit, that resilience, it shines through.
The human spirit finding a way to cope, to make sense of things, to keep going.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Rewind back to Sitting Bull's early life. He wasn't born with that name. Did you know that?
Oh, I'm sure there's a story there.
He was actually born Jumping Badger back in 1831 near present-day Miles City, Montana. And get this, he even had the nickname Slow as a kid.
Slow. How interesting.
I know, right? Not exactly the image you'd expect for someone who becomes this legendary leader. But it turns out he got that nickname because he was such a careful observer, always thinking things through.
That's fascinating. It really flips the script on the idea of him being some hot-headed warrior.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He was clearly a man who valued deliberation, a strategic thinker from a young age.
Makes you wonder if that contributed to his later success as a leader, being able to assess situations carefully.
Oh, absolutely. And he earned the name Sitting Bull at just 10 years old.
10 years old. How did that happen?
Well, his father gave him the name after witnessing his son's bravery during a horse raid against the Crow tribe.
So, already showing signs of courage and leadership at such a young age.
It's really remarkable. And, the name itself, Sitting Bull, it doesn't translate literally from the Lakota language. It's more like, as Ernie Lapointe explains, a buffalo bull who starts to sit down.
That's a powerful image. It conveys both strength and a kind of thoughtful stillness.
Exactly. It's like the name perfectly captures the duality of his character. And here's another little tidbit that just blew my mind. Ernie Lapointe mentions that there were actually 5 Sitting Bulls alive at the same time.
5. From different tribes.
Well, different tribes, yeah. I mean, talk about a recipe for confusion when you're trying to piece together history.
Wow, no kidding. It really makes you wonder how much of what's been written about Sitting Bull is accurate and how much has been, I don't know, maybe misattributed or mixed up because of those other Sitting Bulls.
That's such a great point. It highlights how important it is to really scrutinize our sources and consider who's telling the story and why. Okay, so we've got this young Sitting Bull earning his name, demonstrating bravery and thoughtfulness. But to understand his impact, we need to understand his place within Lakota society, right? And here's where it gets really interesting. Sitting Bull wasn't a war chief in the traditional sense.
He wasn't. So how did he become such a prominent leader?
Well, he was more of a spiritual leader and a spokesperson for his people. And this ties back to what we were talking about earlier with oral history. Sitting Bull was known for his eloquence, his ability to inspire and rally people through his words.
So a leader through words and spirit rather than through military might.
Exactly. And, the Lakota, they didn't have these strict hierarchies like many European societies did. Their leadership was more about consensus, about elders sharing wisdom and guiding the community.
And remind me, they placed a high value on the voices of women, didn't they?
They did. The women were seen as the keepers of wisdom and tradition. They had a powerful voice in council meetings, and their opinions carried real weight.
That's so different from the patriarchal structures that were dominant in most of the world at that time.
It really is. And it speaks to the Lakota understanding of balance and harmony, the idea that both masculine and feminine energies are essential for a healthy society.
And that respect for women extended to Sitting Bull's own life as well. He often sought guidance from his mother and other female elders.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. So we've got Sitting Bull, this spiritual leader, this gifted orator, deeply respected by his people. But what kind of spirituality are we talking about here?
I'm curious about that too. What were his beliefs?
Well, Sitting Bull was deeply connected to the spirit world. He believed in seeking guidance through ceremonies like the sun dance, which involved enduring pain and fasting to reach a higher state of consciousness and receive visions.
It sounds intense, but for him, it was a way to connect with the sacred, to gain wisdom and understanding.
And those visions played a crucial role in his leadership. In the book, Ernie Lapointe tells this amazing story about a vision Sitting Bull had as a boy. He came across a wounded wolf and helped it heal, and the wolf prophesied that the nations will know you just by your name.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It speaks to this idea of interconnectedness, the idea that all beings are related and deserving of compassion.
It does. And it underscores how central the spirit world was to the Lakota way of life, how their understanding of the natural world was intertwined with their spirituality.
It makes you think about how different that perspective is from how many of us view the world today, right? We
Yeah.
often see ourselves as separate from nature rather than a part of it.
That's so true. And that difference in perspective is really at the heart of the conflict that will unfold between Sitting Bull and the U.S. government.
Yeah.
We have this spiritual leader deeply connected to his people and the land, and then you have this clash over, of all things, gold.
Gold. What happened there?
Well, in the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, the Lakota were promised the Black Hills. Have you ever heard of that term, Turtle Island?
I've heard it, but I'm not sure I know what it means.
It's the Lakota name for North America. Their creation story tells about how the world was covered in water, and the creator used mud brought up by a turtle to form the continent.
Wow, that's beautiful imagery.
It is, right? And it speaks to their deep reverence for the earth. So the Black Hills, that was like the heart of Turtle Island for them, a sacred place.
And the U.S. government promised them that land.
They did. But then, as you can probably guess, gold was discovered in the Black Hills.
And you know what happens when gold fever strikes?
It changes everything. The U.S. government, driven by greed and this idea of manifest destiny, that it was their God-given right to expand across the continent, they broke the treaty.
They went back on their word.
They did. They pushed the Lakota onto reservations and opened the Black Hills to miners and settlers.
I can imagine how deeply that betrayal must have cut Sitting Bull and the Lakota people.
Oh, absolutely. He'd never really believed in treaties in the first place. He saw them as a way for the white man to take advantage of his people. And this just confirmed his worst fears.
And it set the stage for a conflict that would escalate in the years to come.
It did. And that conflict would ultimately lead to one of the most famous battles in American history, the Battle of Little Bighorn, which the Lakota call the Battle of the Greasy Grass.
And that's where Sitting Bull's spiritual leadership takes center stage again, right? He had that famous vision of soldiers falling into his camp upside down like grasshoppers.
A vision that turned out to be prophetic. The Lakota won a decisive victory against the U.S. Army, a victory that shocked the nation. But here's a question. Was Sitting Bull a warrior in that battle?
I'm not sure. I always assumed he was leading the charge.
He wasn't, actually. Following his mother's advice, he stayed behind to protect the non-combatants, the women, children, elders. He understood that his role wasn't about fighting with weapons. It was about guiding and protecting his people.
That's so interesting. It shows a different side of him, a more nurturing side, a leader who prioritized the safety of his community.
Right, he was a complex figure, not just a warrior, but a spiritual leader, a strategist, a protector.
And this victory, it must have been bittersweet, right? A triumph against incredible odds, but also a realization that the conflict was far from over.
Oh, absolutely. The Lakota knew that the U.S. wouldn't just let this defeat stand. So what did they do? They sought refuge in Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, they were actually welcomed by their historical rivals, the Blackfeet tribe.
Wow, setting aside generations of conflict to offer sanctuary. That's incredible.
It really speaks to the compassion and resilience of both tribes, their ability to come together in a time of crisis.
It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, humanity can prevail, that compassion can transcend old rivalries.
It's a powerful message. one that's worth remembering as we continue to explore Sitting Bull's journey and the challenges he faced in the years to come.
Challenges that would ultimately lead to his tragic end.
Unfortunately, yes. But before we get to that, we need to talk about one more crucial aspect of Sitting Bull's life, his time in the Buffalo Bill Wild West show.
The Wild West show. Now, that's a twist I wasn't expecting.
It's one of those things that when you hear about it, you're like, how did this even happen? But it speaks to the complexities of Sitting Bull's life, the ways in which he was both celebrated and exploited.
It's a story that really captures the contradictions of that era.
So join us next time as we delve into that unexpected chapter of Sitting Bull's life and explore the final years of his journey.
I'm eager to see where this deep dive takes us next.
Me too. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you back here soon for part 2.
Sounds good.
See ya.
Bye. Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Sitting Bull.
I gotta say, I'm still kind of reeling from everything we talked about last time.
Yeah, his story really packs a punch, doesn't it? So much to unpack.
Definitely. Like, I keep thinking about that Lakota creation story with the turtle and the mud. It's such a beautiful way to view the world.
It is. It really highlights how deeply connected they were to nature, a perspective that clashes so much with the U.S. governments at the time.
That's for sure. That clash, that difference in worldviews, it feels like it's at the heart of everything Sitting Bull went through.
Caught between two worlds, trying to hold on to his people's way of life, while this relentless force of expansion is pushing against him.
And as we left off last time, that pressure was building, right? With the ghost dance movement starting to spread among the Lakota.
Which, was really a peaceful spiritual practice, a way to cope with the loss and trauma they'd endured.
A way to reconnect with their traditions, find hope in a pretty desperate situation.
But the U.S. government, they didn't see it that way, did they?
They saw it as a threat, a sign of rebellion, and they were determined to stop it.
Even if it meant going after Sitting Bull himself.
Yeah, and they did end up targeting him, didn't they?
The government, or, well, more specifically, the Indian agent at Standing Rock, James McLaughlin, he decided to arrest Sitting Bull.
McLaughlin, he's kind of a complicated figure in all this, isn't he? Like, from what I read in these sources, he wasn't some mustache-twirling villain.
Yeah, he genuinely thought he was doing what was best for the Lakota people, even though, looking back, his actions were, pretty disastrous.
He was a product of his time, right? Caught up in that whole idea that Native Americans needed to be civilized and assimilated.
And Sitting Bull, he represented everything that went against that. He was a symbol of resistance, a reminder of a way of life that McLaughlin and the government wanted to, erase.
And it's so tragic how that whole situation turned violent.
In December of 1890, Indian police, acting on McLaughlin's orders, they went to Sitting Bull's cabin to arrest him.
And things spiraled out of control, didn't they?
A scuffle broke out, shots were fired, and Sitting Bull was killed, along with several of his supporters and even some of the Indian police.
Killed by his own people, manipulated by the U.S. government. It feels so senseless, so avoidable.
It really underscores the devastating impact of colonialism, how broken promises and mistrust can lead to violence and tragedy.
And Sitting Bull's death, it wasn't the end of the story, was it?
It actually had a ripple effect, further escalating tensions and contributing to the tragedy at Wounded Knee just a few weeks later.
Wounded Knee, where over 200 Lakota men, women, and children were massacred by U.S. troops. It's a horrific chapter in American history.
A testament to the brutality and injustice inflicted upon Native Americans.
It's hard to even fathom the pain and suffering that took place that day.
It casts a long shadow over everything we've been talking about, right? The broken treaties, the forced assimilation, the relentless pursuit of westward expansion, it all culminated in that horrific event.
And Sitting Bull's death, followed so quickly by Wounded Knee, it solidified his image in the minds of many as a martyr for the Lakota cause.
A symbol of resistance against oppression.
But as we've been discussing, he was so much more than that, wasn't he? A complex individual who defied simple labels.
A spiritual leader, a skilled orator, a pragmatist who tried to navigate the turbulent waters of his time.
He was even, for a while, a performer in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show.
Wait, really? Buffalo Bill, the guy with the big hat and the long hair?
No, one and only. It's one of those things you learn about and you're like, what? How did that even happen? But yeah, for a couple of years in the late 1880s, Sitting Bull toured with the show, traveling across the U.S. and even to Europe.
Wow. So what was that about? Was he like a star attraction?
He was. And it's kind of complicated, to be honest. On the one hand, you have this incredible opportunity for Sitting Bull to share his culture, his perspective, with a wider audience.
To challenge stereotypes, to tell his side of the story.
Exactly. But on the other hand, there was also this element of exploitation.
Yeah.
He was often portrayed as this, like, savage warrior, a spectacle for the audience to gawk at.
It's tough, right? Trying to reclaim your narrative while still being trapped within this system that's designed to profit from your otherness.
It is. And it's a tension that I think a lot of indigenous people still face today.
Navigating that space between sharing your culture and protecting it, between educating others and resisting exploitation.
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure.
And Sitting Bull, he tried to use that platform to advocate for his people, to speak out against the injustices they were facing.
He used his voice whenever he could, even in that setting. And it's interesting, there's this story about Sitting Bull. While he was touring with the show, he was in Philadelphia, and he came across these impoverished children begging for money.
Right. And what did he do?
He gave away all the money he had earned that day to those kids. He couldn't stand to see them suffering.
Wow. That's incredible. It speaks to his compassion, his empathy, even for those outside his own community.
It really does. And it challenges that image of him as this, stoic warrior, this one-dimensional figure.
He was a man of contradictions, capable of both great strength and great tenderness, a fighter and a peacemaker, a leader who was both revered and feared.
And ultimately, his story is a tragedy, isn't it? A life cut short by violence and misunderstanding.
It makes you wonder what he could have accomplished if he'd been given the chance, if the U.S. government had honored their treaties, if they'd listened to his voice instead of trying to silence it.
So much potential lost.
But even in death, his story continues to resonate, doesn't it? Inspiring generations of activists and artists and reminding us of the importance of fighting for justice and preserving indigenous cultures.
His legacy is one of resilience, resistance, and the enduring power of the human spirit. And, I think it's fitting that we're exploring his story through the words of his great-grandson, Ernie Lapointe, someone who's carrying on that legacy, keeping those stories alive.
It's a testament to the power of oral tradition, the way that knowledge and wisdom can be passed down through generations, ensuring that those voices are never truly silenced.
And it reminds us that we all have a responsibility to listen to those voices, to learn from the past, and to work towards a more just and equitable future.
A future where indigenous cultures are respected and celebrated, where treaties are honored, and where the mistakes of the past are never repeated.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps up this part of our deep dive.
It's been a powerful journey, that's for sure.
It has. And there's still so much more to explore. Join us next time as we delve into the aftermath of Sitting Bull's death and the lasting impact of his story on the fight for Native American rights. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the life and legacy of Sitting Bull.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has, and we've covered so much ground already, but we left off last time at a really pivotal moment with Sitting Bull's death and the rising tensions around the Ghost Dance movement.
Yeah, things were about to reach a boiling point.
And sadly, that boiling point came just a few weeks later at Wounded Knee Creek.
A tragedy that's forever etched in history.
On December 29th, 1890, over 200 Lakota men, women, and children were killed by U.S. troops at Wounded Knee.
It's a really difficult event to talk about, but it's such a crucial part of understanding the full impact of Sitting Bull's story.
Absolutely, because his death, it was like a catalyst that ignited these already simmering tensions and fears.
The U.S. government, they were already on edge about the Ghost Dance, seeing it as a threat to their authority.
And they were determined to quash it, even if it meant using brutal force.
And that's exactly what happened at Wounded Knee.
Can you imagine? These Lakota families seeking refuge at Pine Ridge Reservation, they were surrounded by U.S. troops. And then, well, it's still unclear exactly how it started, but...
But the result was a massacre, a horrific act of violence against unarmed people.
It's a dark stain on American history, and it really highlights the devastating consequences of broken promises and cultural misunderstanding.
Because the Lakota, they were just trying to practice their spirituality, to find hope and healing in the face of so much loss and trauma.
But the government saw it as a rebellion, a threat that needed to be eliminated.
And it's heartbreaking to think about how Sitting Bull, who always advocated for peace and diplomacy, was ultimately caught in the crosshairs of this conflict.
Yeah, his death was a turning point, and Wounded Knee, well, that was the tragic culmination of all those years of tension and broken treaties.
It really makes you think about the long-lasting impact of colonialism and the importance of understanding history from multiple perspectives.
Because for so long, the dominant narrative was one of westward expansion, of civilizing the West.
But that narrative, it often ignores the voices and experiences of those who were already here, the indigenous people who were displaced and marginalized.
And Sitting Bull's story, it challenges that narrative.
Yeah. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths about our past
To acknowledge the injustices that were committed.
and to work towards a more just and equitable future for all.
Exactly. Because his legacy, it's not just about remembering the past. It's about using those lessons to shape the present and the future.
And that's what's so inspiring about him, right? Despite all the challenges he faced, he never gave up hope. He never stopped fighting for his people.
He was a true leader, a visionary who understood the importance of preserving his culture, his traditions.
And his story, it continues to inspire people all over the world to stand up for what they believe in, to fight for justice and equality.
And that's why it's so important to keep telling his story, to share these different perspectives, to honor the voices that have been silenced for too long.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the life and legacy of Sitting Bull, let's remember that his story is more than just a chapter in a history book.
It's a living legacy, a call to action for all of us.
To listen to the voices of those who have been marginalized, to learn from the mistakes of the past, and to work towards a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect.
Because in the end, that's what Sitting Bull's fight was all about.
A fight for justice, for peace, for the right to live in harmony with the land and with each other.
A fight that's still relevant today as we continue to grapple with issues of inequality and the legacies of colonialism.
So let's carry Sitting Bull's spirit with us as we move forward. Let's honor his memory by working towards a more just and compassionate world.
Well said, well said. And thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
We hope you've learned something new, that you've been challenged to think about history in a different way.
And that you'll continue to explore these stories, to keep asking questions, to keep the conversation going.
Because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, that's how we build a better future together.
That's right.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep, and we'll see you back here soon.
See ya.